Hey everybody, welcome back to the Jeep Journals, and today I want to talk about forgiveness. So what does it feel like to forgive somebody? Well, to me, it feels easy to communicate with that person. And what that means is I don't fear communicating with that person whatsoever. So there are no excuses when it comes to having those conversations that are needed. The opposite of forgiveness, what I think it feels like, is difficulties communicating and obstructions. And sometimes those obstructions are not placed there because you're placing the obstructions. Sometimes they're being placed in a way where someone else already has an obstruction and they're coming to you with a spirit of vengeance. And what do I mean by that? It's kind of like the awkward situation if you've ever come out into a situation. Let's say that you're crossing the road or you have that awkward neighbor where you wave to them. Like, let's say you're sharing a trail together, hiking on the trails, and you wave, "Hey, howdy, howdy from Texas," whatever. And the other person, the person across the fence, the person that's headed in the opposite direction on the trails you're sharing, the person who you reach out to, who basically you literally make the call. You do everything you can to communicate, but for whatever reason they don't wave back. And since they don't wave back, you just get into a situation where you wonder what the difficulty is. So sometimes in some generations and in some formats, that is known as what is called ghosting. So if you've ever been ghosted, especially in a personal relationship between lovers, these types of things are manifested because somebody has a difficulty or an obstacle that they cannot quite figure out how to get past. And the first step to getting past that is to get over the ego that oftentimes dictates whether or not we are able to communicate with one another. So I used a lot of words there, and I know they sound difficult. Some of them might sound crude, funny. I'm pretty indifferent to all of it. Right now I've got doves walking around in front of me. You can hear hummingbirds going. There's activity, there's traffic, there's life all around. And it's finally overcast, and it's finally under 100 degrees right now, coming up on this hour in the evening, which is quite pleasant. And I can see it in the birds, I can see it in the hummingbirds. I've got multiple hummingbirds, multiple birds of a variety of sorts. Oh, they're flying off. Not quite sure who saw what, but it doesn't look like it was any of the hawks this time. Even the hawks are coming in mostly for water, believe it or not. So all of these things are just basic topics of what forgiveness and communication feels like. It should be very fluid, should be very effortless, and it should be so that people aren't afraid to say certain things or not say certain things, because love is love. And if you're in love, then you're basically going to appreciate that which is around you and do everything you can to safeguard it. So, like, let's say that you're a parent and you just received your newborn child into your family, whether you gave birth to the child or whether the other person helped you to become pregnant to begin with. Let's just say you have this newborn child, or even for the fur baby lovers, let's say that you have a new pet, and you value this life, a plant. Let's say you have a new plant and it's got this beautiful flower, or let's say that you have this piece of jewelry, whatever it is that you appreciate, you value it so much that you're going to give it the consideration and care that it probably deserves, maybe even more than it deserves. And in a lot of ways that's God's love for you. You can receive an abundance of blessings because not only will the Lord share with you what is rightfully yours, but you'll be showered with you'll be showered on top of the blessings that you're receiving above and beyond that. So that's basically, I'm not saying it in exactly the right way, but for the most part, when you're listening, you understand that different there are different wavelengths that we can tune into, and they happen differently for different reasons across the spectrum, so to speak. So right now, as it was overcast and the shade was out and the birds were all at peace, and I just saw what I no, it was a dove. You saw all of a sudden the peace was disrupted, but we couldn't identify why exactly that was. We couldn't tell specifically what happened. You knew the message, where it was going. You were comfortable with the words, but maybe something caused a little bit of discomfort. So those kind of things are things where usually we're fighting over territory. Even here, where the hummingbirds are, there's a one male and at least two females that are here, and for some reason I've noticed that there are a couple of the females that the male hummingbird will chase off. In addition to, did you hear? I'm literally talking about the chasing off process, and it just happened. In this case, it was the male chasing off one of the competing males for the resources that are right here. So again, it's competition. In these scarce times, the thing that these hummingbirds might not know is that the steward of this land will make it so that there's plenty of hummingbird nectar for these hummingbirds to share. And so in order to do that, we try to diversify the locations and even the feeder type so that they can enjoy feed without feeling that they have to be overly aggressive defending these resources. So the jays, the bird that you're hearing right now is a blue jay. The jays can be very aggressive when it comes to defending their territories as well. And in a lot of cases, all these fancy looking, beautifully ornate birds are competing because it takes a lot of energy to put on that level of that display of beauty. So at a certain point, that's why I think hummingbirds eat almost purely sugar, because they are so sweet and beautiful. And those types of diets come with a cost. You have to protect vigilantly what is yours. And so if there's something taking away your energy, like let's say someone across the fence who doesn't want to wave back, well, the only thing you can do is continue to wave. And then basically, let's say you enjoy time in the yard where they can't stand to see you. Well, they're going to go away. There's as long as you're not hurting anyone's feelings by letting your temper get out of control and start trying to blame one another for this, that, and the other, you're not going to have one of those neighbors gone wild situations. You'll just have someone who's unhappy. There are a lot of unhappy people in the world. They don't necessarily want to respond to people who are happy or who are trying to come up with solutions, because it gets very difficult when we recognize that we're not quite at peace if someone is totally in peace. It's like it'd be like if someone was in a relationship and someone else wasn't in a relationship and they were getting together, in one case with a respective partner. Someone might feel a little bit left out depending on how someone else feels. And since we normally try to think that we're all tough and well educated simultaneously, sometimes we overlook the fact that the education might not include some of the basic underpinnings of our conversational capabilities, because it wasn't taught to us. We weren't taught to also weigh in the emotional variables, such as, would we vote on any type of construction that furthered war if we knew that it might destroy some of the vegetation and or animals that we have around us. So even the dog confirmed that thought, said I don't know that we would do that. We probably wouldn't want to destroy that which we loved. This blue jay is probably agreeing right now and it's saying you're destroying my peace, because there's a peanut feeder here that they like to take from, but I'm sitting pretty close. There's a wren, there's a cardinal. I was talking with someone recently about cardinals. There's a sparrow, there's a dove. There are definitely hummingbirds. and of course you heard the blue jay. So sometimes we get woodpeckers and the goldfinches, all kinds of different birds here. Thank you so much for listening along as I talked about this topic of what forgiveness feels like. Thank you for reaching out to communicate. If you're long awaiting a conversation with somebody that you wanted to communicate with, and for taking the initiative to have your heart beating again and not have your heart just turn to stone. Those times when it gets hardened are times when you might want to take a little bit longer of a look at something that is peaceful. So till next time, peace, love, and all that old school stuff. Thanks so much for watching.